All right, so today we're going to be diving into some pretty interesting stuff, some developments that have been brewing in the Indian political scene. It's all about social justice and a new push for change.
Yeah, there's been a lot of buzz around this latest initiative from the Congress Party, particularly their focus on the Bahujan community, the scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, and the other backward classes.
Right, and what we're trying to do here is go a little deeper than just the headlines. We want to understand what these proposals actually mean on the ground. What's the real potential impact for people?
Exactly, because it's one thing to make promises, but translating those into tangible benefits, that's a whole different ballgame.
Absolutely. So let's just jump right in, shall we? We're talking about a pretty significant All India Congress Committee session that just wrapped up, right? I think it was called Nypath.
Yeah, Nypath, the Path of Justice. It was held in Ahmedabad, Gujarat, and it wasn't just your typical party meeting. They adopted some resolutions there that could have major implications.
Okay, so what were the big takeaways? What did they actually put on the table?
Well, there were three key policy promises specifically aimed at the Bahujan community, and those have been front and center in the messaging ever since.
And Rahul Gandhi himself has been really vocal about these, hasn't he? So let's break those down one by one, starting with what seems like the most potentially groundbreaking one. I'm talking about the proposal for a national law to get rid of that 50% cap on reservations.
Yeah, that's a big one, a move that could really shake things up when it comes to access to education and jobs.
I mean, we're talking about a limit that's been in place for decades, right? To imagine a scenario where that ceiling is just lifted, that's huge. Think about how many more opportunities could suddenly become available to people who might have previously felt shut out.
It's pretty remarkable to think about the potential ripple effects. I mean, this could completely change how colleges admit students and how companies hire employees.
It's really about who gets a seat at the table, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the scale of it, that's what's really striking.
Mhm.
But of course, there are going to be challenges, right? Legally, I mean, this is a major shift. Are there going to be constitutional hurdles? What about previous court rulings on reservation limits? There's a lot to navigate.
Totally. It's important to acknowledge that while this could be a game changer, the path to actually getting rid of that 50% cap, it's not going to be easy. There are bound to be legal battles and a lot of debate.
Oh, for sure. But let's move on to the second promise, which is equally significant in its own way, strengthening the SEST subplan.
Okay, remind me quickly, what is the sub-plan exactly?
Sure. So the idea is to allocate funds specifically for the development of scheduled caste and scheduled tribe communities. And the amount of funding is supposed to be proportional to their population.
Right. So in theory, it ensures that these communities get a fair share of resources.
Exactly. But the thing is, right now it's more of a guideline than a hard and fast rule, and that means there's room for interpretation. Sometimes funds get diverted, sometimes allocations are reduced.
So the Congress is proposing to make it legally binding.
Exactly. A central law to make that funding mandatory, not optional.
So it's about taking a good intention and giving it some real teeth.
Absolutely. And think about what that could mean on the ground. More consistent and reliable funding for things like infrastructure, education, essential services.
Yeah, it's about those tangible improvements in people's lives. Better roads, better schools, better healthcare facilities.
Exactly. If a state is facing budget constraints, they might be tempted to cut back on the subplan allocation. But if it's legally binding, they wouldn't have that discretion.
So it's kind of like a safety net, ensuring those funds are protected.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it.
All right, now the third promise that really stood out to me was this renewed push for enforcing Article 15.5.
Ah, yes, Article 15.5, a very interesting one.
This is about reservations in private educational institutions, right?
Exactly.
But this article isn't new, is it? I mean, wasn't it introduced almost 20 years ago?
It was, back in 2006. But the implementation has been, well, patchy, to say the least.
Yeah, it feels like it's been more of a promise than a reality for a lot of people.
And that's exactly what the Congress is trying to address now. They're demanding immediate and effective implementation.
Yeah.
So for those listening, think about what that could mean for you. Could this open doors to quality education in institutions that were previously inaccessible, maybe due to cost or other barriers?
Yeah, it's about leveling the playing field, right? Extending those principles of affirmative action into the private sector.
Exactly. But of course, this isn't going to be without its challenges.
No, I imagine there's going to be pushback from private institutions. They often guard their autonomy pretty fiercely.
Oh, absolutely. They'll likely argue against mandated reservations, citing their funding models, their admissions processes. It could get complicated.
Yeah, it's not just about saying it should happen, it's about figuring out how to make it happen in a way that's workable. Now, there's one more piece to this puzzle, and it sort of underpins all of these specific proposals. The commitment to conducting a nationwide caste census.
Right. The idea being that you can't really address social injustices effectively without a comprehensive understanding of the social landscape, and that requires data.
So it's about getting a clear picture of the caste demographics across the country.
Exactly. And having that data can then guide policy decisions, resource allocation, all of that.
It's that old adage, you can't fix what you can't measure, right?
Exactly. The argument is that to tackle inequalities effectively, you need to move beyond assumptions and anecdotal evidence and get those concrete numbers.
And it's interesting to note that they chose to hold this AICC session in Ahmedabad.
Yeah, Ahmedabad, it's not just any city. It's a place deeply connected to Mahatma Gandhi and the independence movement.
So choosing that location feels quite deliberate, like they're trying to connect this renewed focus on social justice to that historical legacy.
Oh, absolutely. It frames this initiative within a longer tradition of striving for social justice in India, a very powerful association. And the fact that the event was described using terms like Sankalp, which means resolve, Samarpan, dedication, and Sangharsh, struggle.
It definitely emphasizes the seriousness of their intent and the fact that all those key figures were there, Mallikarjun Kharge, Sonia Gandhi, Rahul Gandhi, and that they all adopted the Nyaypath resolution unanimously. It suggests a united front within the party leadership.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And it didn't stop there. Rahul Gandhi wasted no time in taking to social media, using X to directly address the Bahujan community.
With that catchy slogan, Haath Badlega Haalat, right? The hand will change your fate.
Very direct, very clear who they're targeting with that message. And of course, that hand directly referencing the Congress Party's election symbol.
It's a pretty smart move, really. It creates that immediate association between the promised changes and the party itself.
Oh yeah, it's a well-crafted political message.
So zooming out a bit, it seems like these initiatives, taken together, could be pretty transformative for the Bahujan community. We're talking about potentially increased access to education and jobs, more funding for their communities, a chance to break into private educational institutions. And that caste census could provide valuable data to address inequalities at a systemic level.
And that's certainly how it's being presented, a real opportunity for empowerment and progress. But I think it's also crucial to inject a dose of realism here. We've seen political promises come and go, so it's natural to have some questions.
Yeah, like how feasible are these promises in reality? And how much of this is driven by genuine commitment versus political strategy? Let's be honest, the Bahujan community is a significant voting bloc, and any party that can effectively appeal to them stands to gain a lot.
Absolutely. So we need to look at this through both lenses, the lens of social justice and the lens of political maneuvering. They often go hand in hand.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a few key things to ponder. Really think about what these specific proposals could mean for you. The end of that 50% reservation cap, the legally binding SC/ST subplan, reservations in private schools, and that nationwide caste census.
And think about that rally cry, Haath Badlega Haalat, echoing from the banks of the Sabarmati. What does that evoke for you? What questions does it raise? What hopes? What doubts?
This is a moment full of possibility, but also potential pitfalls. It's complex, it's nuanced, and it demands that we engage critically with what's being proposed and what it could mean for the future of social justice and representation in India. Keep following this story, seek out more information, and most importantly, form your own informed perspective.
Yeah, I think that's the key takeaway here. Stay engaged, stay informed, and keep those critical thinking skills sharp. This is a story that's just beginning to unfold, and it's one that will impact all of us in one way or another.
Well said. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.